mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams on this Monday, July 16th, filling in for Alex today. And we have a whirlwind of information to bring you today, straight from the studios here in Austin, Texas. We've got a lot of great guests lined up for you today. We've got Jim Marrs joining us at the bottom of this hour to discuss the UN Small Arms Treaty and the implications of that, and whether he thinks they can even try to pull that off in America, where the Second Amendment, of course, is written right into the Bill of Rights. That's going to be an interesting situation. So Jim Marrs joins us to talk about that. Also, some news that has been breaking recently is the so-called Monsanto Protection Act. This is a legislative effort to grant Monsanto a type of immunity, and we'll get into more details on that later, concerning experimental genetically modified crops that are planted all across the country. We've got Darrell Rogers from Alliance for Natural Health joining us in the second hour for that segment. That's going to be, oh, wow, you're going to learn some things there that will absolutely blow your mind about corporate influence over the legislative process and the regulatory process in the United States. Of course, if you're a regular Alex Jones listener, you already know that America is experiencing sort of a runaway corporate fascist thug mafia government. So that's not a surprise to you, but some details that are going to be revealed here today will probably surprise you, even if you already know all that. So be sure to stay with us on the second hour. We've also got Ask Alex Jones segment coming up for the third hour. This is from planetinfowars.com. People are asking Alex questions, and he is working to answer them. 50 questions is his goal in this hour. I don't think he's going to quite make it to 50, but I'm sure he'll do a good job answering some questions. And if we have time right before that in the second hour, I'd like to take some calls and let you ask me some questions. A little impromptu Ask the Health Ranger section. That'll be in the second hour. So we've got all that coming up, plus a lot of news on drones. And we're going to get into the drone news right at the beginning of the next segment. But let me go over some of the breaking news that's just hitting the internet and hitting the airwaves today, because some of this, again, okay. Here we have from the Economic Collapse website, these 12, quote, hellholes are example of what the rest of America will look like soon. And it then goes on to quote, 12 cities and towns, Gary, Indiana, Detroit, Michigan. I'm sure Chicago is in here somewhere as well. The murder rate is skyrocketing in Chicago as the citizens are completely disarmed and unable to defend themselves against predators who are, of course, armed criminal gangs, and sometimes just armed individuals who are willing to commit violent crimes against innocents that they know cannot protect themselves because of the disarmament system there in Chicago. Detroit, of course, has become a black hole of the economy. Nothing against people in Detroit, many great people living there. In fact, we've covered some of them in the past who've done amazing things, innovative things, courageous things, and so on. But as a whole, Detroit's economy, of course, has imploded for many, many years. The city is just a shadow of what it used to be. Services are being cut back. Even street lights are being cut back in Detroit. And, of course, part of this is because of the socialist, more like communist, political agenda at the top of the country that is moving our jobs overseas on purpose, using, for example, billions of dollars of taxpayer money to ship jobs from General Motors over to China, thereby denying American workers access to what were decent paying jobs where you could actually, live a decent life, tap into the American dream. But that's gone now. The American dream has been offshored. And in its place, we're going to have a drone surveilled police state, a monitoring of all your email, of everything you say on the telephone. We're going to have economic implosion. Now everybody's on food stamps instead of being able to have an honest job. It's all that, and it's getting crazier by the day. So we've got those reports and much more coming up straight ahead right here on the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, and we'll be right back after this break with all those details, plus those interviews straight ahead. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Yeah, welcome to the Alex Jones Show. It is Monday, July 16th, 2012. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. filling in for Alex today. We've got a whirlwind of news ahead to cover and some great interviews coming up as well. Of course, a lot always happening in the realm of liberty and the economic implosion of America. Before the break, we were just speaking about the 12 quote, hellholes, economic hellholes are examples of what the rest of America will look like soon. This is an article out of the Economic Collapse. A very, very important article and a lot of warning signs of what's happening. But here's something else that's happening that I want to get into here. And, oh, by the way, we've got Jim Marrs coming up at the bottom of this hour to talk about the UN Small Arms Treaty. A great interview expected there with Mr. Marrs right out of Texas as well. And, of course, we're coming to you today live from Austin, Texas, behind enemy lines, as the bumper often says. We've also got Darrell Rogers from the Alliance for Natural Health joining us in the second hour to discuss the so-called Monsanto Protection Act and why is the government and these regulators like the FDA and the USDA in particular in this case, why do they continue to protect corporate interests instead of protecting the people? Aren't they supposed to regulate corporations so that the people are protected against, let's say, genetic pollution or dangerous pharmaceuticals or runaway chemical pollution of the rivers and the waterways and things like that? Why aren't they doing their jobs? Why are they always selling out to the corporations? We're going to talk about that in the second hour with Darrell Rogers from ANH-USA.org. That's a nonprofit focused on natural health and health freedom as well. Also in the third hour today, we've got Alex Jones with his Ask Alex segment. That's from planetinfowars.com, and he attempts to answer 50 questions posed by readers. And I say attempts because, you know, one of the curses of having so much knowledge as Alex does is that you start to answer one question, but it brings in all these details from all these other areas, and it becomes, you know, an in-depth explanation of the big picture. So that's why it's hard for Alex to just answer one question very briefly. He's got to actually bring in all his knowledge and everything that he knows about it, and that can take time. So anyway, we'll see how many questions he does get to out of 50 in the third hour today. Also, by the way, plugging tomorrow, great show lined up for you tomorrow right here on the Alex Jones Show. I'm hosting it again, doing a back-to-back hosting situation here, which is the first time I've ever done that for Alex Jones. Tomorrow we've got a major interview, a worldwide exclusive interview with a whistleblower, a key whistleblower deep inside one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to share too many details yet, but I promise you it will be an explosive interview with information that you've never heard on radio or the internet or anywhere. That's going to be a very hard-hitting interview, so make sure you tune in tomorrow for that. Now, getting to the news that's happening right now, I want to share something fun with you. I was walking around Austin, the city of Austin yesterday, and I saw this stop sign. And for those of you watching on Prisonplanet.tv, you can see this. I'll explain it for those of you listening on the radio. It's a stop sign, a regular stop sign that you see on the road, but someone has painted in some very legible white paint underneath the word stop. They wrote, "The Police State." And it's very visible. I've got a picture showing on the screen right now for those of you watching. And I just thought, isn't this great? You know, in Austin, there's this sort of just this vibe of people wanting freedom, people wanting to be free. And I know this is true all over the country in other cities. I know that many of those listening are out there putting posters up, are running website blogs and posting videos on YouTube and really just talking about freedom and liberty and why we shouldn't live in a society where we're monitored 24/7. We're supposed to have basic privacy. We're supposed to have basic free speech. We're supposed to have the rights to go protest without being arrested for it, by the way, without having to ask for permits from the king. "Oh, please, king, can we beg you for a permit to go protest your policies?" I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens in America, and it makes no sense. But along the lines of surveillance, here's what else is really happening right now. The drones. We've got major news for you here on the drones. Here's an article to lead this off. This is from EFF.org. The FAA has now released thousands of pages of drone records. And what they reveal is that drone flights in the United States are frequent, and these records reveal where they're flying, how long they are flying, how long they stay in the air, in effect, their locations, the frequency, the 125 drone certificates and accompanying documents that says that the FAA released today total thousands of pages and were released in response to the EFF's Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. Now, what this shows is that drones are being deployed everywhere. I mean, all across the country, major cities and major universities. And we're going to bring you some information right now that is, there you go, there's a story up on the screen for those of you watching. I mean, this is information out of Texas A&M, Texas State University, Miami-Dade Police Department, Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, North Little Rock Police Department, Cornell University, and many, many more. University of Connecticut, for example. So I thought we need to take a serious look at what is the drone near future situation. I put together an analysis last night in anticipation of being here today, and I want to bring you this analysis because it's got a lot of important information. Now, I don't know if you can get a shot of this. We're going to talk about some drone protection fabrics. Right here on my left in the studio here is a Mylar space blanket. We're going to talk about why this might be useful to protect yourself from drones. You might say, why do we need to be protected from drones? What's that all about? Well, here's the deal. Drones, of course, are remote-controlled systems. The question is, who is controlling them? Now, if a local police department that respects the Constitution is controlling them, that's arguably not a bad thing. They can actually fight crime, help keep the peace, and so on. But what about if the U.S. military is controlling them and using them against civilian populations in the United States? Even worse, what if they get hacked by China, for example? We know that the Chinese government has invested literally billions of dollars in hacking resources. They even have a hacking university where they train the brightest students in computer malware development, social engineering that leads to hacking, discovery of passwords and things like that. And of course, there's the Stuxnet and the Flame virus that was co-developed by the United States and Israel, according to reports. That is very advanced, very advanced. What if China got its hands on that kind of code or something similar? The question is, could the drones, let's say there's 5,000 drones flying above U.S. cities on any given day in the next 5 years. And that's not out of the realm of what could really happen, even based on what the FAA has approved, by the way. I think they approved something like laws that would allow 30,000 drones to be deployed across the country. So what if there are thousands of drones that are flying over the United States? And what if some of them are armed? Because now Raytheon is working on a small missile, sort of like a small Hellfire missile that can be carried and deployed by the drones. And it's a self-guided missile. It locks on target. It's got its own navigation system. It's got its own cameras. It's got its own guidance systems, its own propellant, and so on. So a drone can fly into any area and then launch a missile onto a target, whatever target is selected by the drone operator. So again, what if the drone operator becomes a hacker group from China or North Korea, theoretically? Or what if it's a rogue group of hackers from anywhere that just takes it over because the security is so bad? Now, you might say this could never happen, but you'd be wrong because, of course, Iran already used a GPS spoofing attack to intercept the navigation of a U.S. drone. I believe that was a Predator drone, and to land it on a runway in Iran, where they then took possession of that technology and began to take it apart and decode it and try to figure it out. That was a simple GPS spoof. And recently in Texas, I don't know which university, I think it was just a Texas State University, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a university in Texas recently, I think just 2 months ago, also did a spoofing attack exercise to show that you could spoof the drone and make it land wherever you want it to land, or make it fly wherever you want it to fly. So we know that these drones can be taken over by hackers or a ground-deployed spoofing force. And why does this matter to you? And why do you need to know how to potentially protect yourself from drones? Because, again, what happens if we've got 5,000 drones in the sky, a foreign hacker group, or even a domestic enemy hacker group that just declares war on the American people, decides to just unleash the drones on the people and unleash the small Hellfire type of missiles or deploy surveillance against the American people? How do you protect yourself against those drones? So in order to help answer that question,